Hey, Translove Take 2. This is Krista with your Sunday weekly wrap-up. Hope everyone had a fab week. Life here is, as it always is, busy, fantastic, the usual. So, this week's topic is near and dear to my heart. This week's topic, as most of you know who have tuned in for the rest of the week, is about kids and explaining your partner's transition to kids. So I think I'm in kind of a unique position with this topic, as I believe I am the only one who has a child old enough that we had to explain this to her. Let's see. Elliot met Paisley when she was 3. It was just at the very beginning of his transition. He still looked very feminine. I don't think he even had a binder at that point. It was a while ago. Anyway, so I don't think we talked a whole lot about it. She was introduced to Elliot as Elliot, male pronouns, all of that. But as, our relationship continued and we dated and got married and all that kind of stuff, along the way, there's been lots of questions from Paisley. She's a really bright kid. She's very inquisitive. She asks a ton of questions. So it's been an interesting ride, to say the least. I can say that before talking to Paisley about anything, Paisley's biological dad, Elliot, and I all sat down together. And we talked about how we were going to talk to Paisley about this and what terminology we were going to use, how in-depth we would get, and basically try to think of every question that her little brain would ask, and we kind of answered it for ourselves and then went from there. So I think initially, sorry, this is going a while back. I think initially it was Paisley and I. Paisley lives with me full time. Elliot lives in the States, and Paisley's biological dad, he lives in another city about an hour and a half away. So Paisley's with me the most, so I was the one delegated with the task. Elliot may have been living here at that point. I honestly don't remember, but I remember that I had the first initial conversation with her. And we basically talked about who Elliot was pre-transition, in age-appropriate terms and in a way that she would understand. So we talked about how he had lived most of his life as a female, or as a girl for her instead of female. We had talked about what that meant, so that he was expected to wear girl things and do girl things and stuff like that, although he was a huge tomboy. So he fought that, and we talked about that too, that even at a young age, he didn't quite feel like something was right in his mind and in his body. So we talked about that, and we talked about, at this point he must have had a binder, because we talked about his binder, because I think that's what spurred all of this on, is she had been inquiring why he wore an undershirt, and we would always just say, oh, it's his binder. And we didn't really go any further than that, but we realized that we needed to do that. So we talked about a little bit about his body, in that even though he was a boy, he still had some girl parts, and so he wore a binder to hide his chest. And having a daughter, it was easy, I think, to say, well, he has a chest like mummy's, but that's only part of him. That's not what makes him a boy. His heart, and we didn't really talk about his brain because she was still really young, but we talked about that, his heart makes him feel like he's a boy. So at that initial conversation, we just kind of left it. you know, she was cool with that. She was like, yep, he's a boy. He's my stepdad. He's awesome. She just kind of accepted things because that's who she is. Then I guess probably a few months later, she started asking more questions. So we, as Paisley asks questions, we answer them. We don't beat around the bush. We don't mince words. We use proper terminology for things. So her next set of questions, again, had to do with his body. And so again, we talked about how his body looks like Mummy's body, that it doesn't look like Daddy's body, that he is still a man, and we talked about, because he was, or is on T, you know, his body is changing into more of a male's body, and we talked about, you know, oh, he has facial hair, and he has chest hair, and leg hair, and armpit hair, and all of these things, and she kind of surprised us and asked when his chest would fall off, so he would have a boy's chest, and when he would grow a penis. I think my face was probably as red as you can imagine. I'm getting red just thinking about it. So that of course brought out more conversation. I believe Elliot left the room and let me handle it. So we talked about how Elliot will eventually have surgery to remove his chest to make it more like a male's chest, and that testosterone is awesome, but it doesn't let him grow a penis. And she said, so that's why he sits to pee. And I said, yep, that's exactly why he sits to pee. She says, my daddy pees sitting down too all the time. I'm like, yes, he does. So that was kind of good. If Elliot watches this, I am so sorry. He's going to be mortified. Anyway, so we talked about that, and we talked about that if Elliot chooses to have surgery down the line, he can choose to have surgery that will give him a penis. But we talked about that not all trans people want to have surgery, and that's okay too. They are still the man or woman that they feel like in their heart. So Paisley, as far as I know, she hasn't talked to any of her friends about Elliot being trans or what that means. Paisley's school educators, mainly teachers, because Elliot has done some volunteer work. Whenever he's in Canada, he comes to he volunteers in her classroom just to make her feel special, because I can't, running a home business, and her dad can't, we're living so far away. So he always makes a point of going in and hanging out for a day or two with her in her classroom. So her teachers have always known that her stepdad is trans and what that means, and you know, it's sitting down and going through the ABCs of being an ally and all of that with them. But it's never been an issue. I think none of Paisley's peers, at least she's never said anything that any of her peers have said anything. Elliot passes really well, so I can't imagine that they would, but you know, kids are kids, right? So so I guess the approach that we've taken as parents is just to be really upfront and honest, and it really has helped us that Paisley's dad is amazing and an incredible supporter, an incredible ally. Absolutely. He marched in the Pride Parade with us for 2 years now. I think for 2 years now he's marched in the Pride Parade with us as an ally. He's a really, really great supporter, and he is very approving of our relationship. We've got, you know, he and Elliot go out for beers. When people talk about co-parenting and the difficulties and challenges that arise with co-parenting, I can proudly say that I really don't have very many of them, because the three of us are a really cohesive team when it comes to raising Paisley. So that's really helped, you know, and when Paisley has talked to Sean about this, which she has, he's on the same page, and he is fantastic. And when Paisley talks to Elliot about it, even though he gets a little embarrassed, it's the same thing. He's really great. It's nice to have the three of us kind of all be together on this. So fortunately, we haven't run into very many things, any issues at all. Paisley's never ever misgendered Elliot. She's corrected people, family members, when they've used the wrong pronoun, which is brilliant, out of the mouths of babes, and I'm so proud of that kid, let me tell you. Because Elliot has always been her stepdad and not her dad, she has always called him E, or Elliot, but usually it's E. That's kind of like her little nickname for him. And he calls her Chicken Wing. It's kind of cute. But you know, when she introduces him, it's always her stepdad. This is my stepdad, Elliot. Occasionally she said dad, but not very often. It's usually stepdad. Yeah, so we've been really fortunate. We've been really, really fortunate. And like I said, Paige is a really smart kid, and she picks things up and she gets it and she accepts people. I think for her being part of the trans community with the volunteer work that I've done for the last few years, excuse me, in the trans community and with PFLAG, she's been exposed to the trans community and different stages of transition, you know, since she's been little, since she's been really young. She's been exposed to that. So when it came to talking to her about what that means for Elliot, it really wasn't, you know, a big deal because we had other people to relate it back to, that she knows, and who are in the different stages of their transitions, both male to female and female to male. So yeah, I think that's about it. You know, we've been really lucky, really, really lucky, and I think the advice that I would give anyone when talking to their kids is or you know, younger siblings or other family members or friends' kids, is to be really upfront and honest as far as your partner is comfortable. I mean, you obviously have to have their permission to talk about their life, but to be really upfront and honest about things, use terminology that the children are going to understand. I wouldn't be talking about, you know, metasurgery and breast reconstruction and stuff like that. We've just left it in fairly simple terms, and when it comes to that or those questions, then we'll talk to Paisley in terms that she can understand to explain different things. Yeah, be honest, be straightforward, don't lie to the kids, let them ask questions, let them feel what they're going to feel. I think that's really, really important, is to let them feel, especially if they know the person pre-transition and they have an attachment to that person. You know, for many of us, you know, letting go of who our partner was pre-transition is a really difficult time, and a child will have the same feelings that an adult has, but in a different way. You know, they can't necessarily express how they're feeling, but they'll go through the same things. There may be anger, and there may be sadness, and there may be euphoria, and all the things that go along with that. So just, you know, to support your child in the best way you can. There's some really great resources online, and if I remember, I will find them and post them in the comment section. So, this is Krista with Trans Love Take 2. I'm not even sure what week we are, but hey, please subscribe. Up there, comments, queries, roots, snide remarks down there. Yeah, if you have any questions at all, shoot me a line. Have a great week, everyone. Cheers.